Football is without a doubt the biggest sport in the US. People come out in the tens of thousands to watch the games, which creates the logistical problem of how to get everybody to and from the stadium. In a lot of cases in the US, this involves cars. However, sporting events truly show the limits of car travel and its inefficiencies. Even in the US, a lot of stadiums have worked with local transit agencies to get people to and from the stadiums. But some stadiums do a better job at connecting to their local transit systems. So let's take a look at all 30 NFL stadiums and see which ones do a good job and which ones need improvement. Like my last video, I'm going to be pulling a lot of my data from WalkScore. Since we're only going to be looking at the transit accessibility of the stadiums, I'm only going to be paying attention to its transit score. So let's get into the list. So you may or may not be surprised, but there's a stadium on this list that is objectively the worst, and I'll give you a few seconds to guess it. If you said AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play, then congratulations, you're right on the money. This is quite literally the only team that scores a 0 on the list, and that's because of the city of Arlington, Texas. It is the largest city in the US without a transit provider, and you can see this with a lot of the land use around the stadium. It's very car dependent, and even the closest transit is Trinity Rail Express, and it's still over 7 miles from the stadium. Arlington technically does have a publicly subsidized rideshare service, but no one is counting this as a replacement to traditional transit, and Arlington is easily the hardest stadium to get to in the NFL without a car. Just slightly better than Dallas, we have our stadiums that fall into the bottom 10 transit scores. I consider these the technically able to get to by transit, but incredibly inconvenient section. Now, these stadiums really aren't much of an upgrade from Dallas. Most of these stadiums are really only served by a couple of bus lines. In fact, Kansas City, Arizona, Jacksonville, and Buffalo are only served by a single bus line. However, FedEx Field and Gillette Stadium actually stand out as having rail transit run near or to the stadium. In Washington's case with FedEx Field, the blue line on the Washington Metro has a station about a mile from the field. And in New England's case, the MBTA runs game day trains to Gillette Stadium. Some of these stadiums have additional game day bus services, but overall taking transit to the stadiums feels more like a chore and is a complete afterthought in terms of serving the stadium. Our next group of stadiums are what I'm going to call the runners-up. These stadiums actually have some better transit connections, but still fall short of the top 10. Some of these cities should be proud though that they even rank this high, such as Denver, whose Mile High Stadium has some pretty easy access via transit thanks to RTD. Philadelphia just barely misses the top 10, but has easy access to Lincoln Financial Field from Center City via the Broad Street line, as well as a few bus services. And Indianapolis, which is surprising because they're in a state that banned light rail transit, so it's surprising that they'd even get out of the bottom 5 for this list. But this category also contains some really disappointing cities. For example, the New York teams who play in East Rutherford, New Jersey have some really disappointing transit connections for a city that's so well connected by rail transit. And Los Angeles, whose recently opened SoFi Stadium is so close to an actual rail transit connection, yet decided to go with horrible land use and bus shuttles. But for most of these cities, it still feels pretty normal to go to a game by transit. You won't be going completely out of your way for it, and not only is it going to be cheaper than driving to the game and parking, you might even get to and from the game faster than driving. Now let's get into the top 10 NFL stadiums for transit connections. But before we do that, if you all want to see my content earlier, get your name in the credits, and support the channel, go check out my Patreon. But you know what, that's enough self-promotion for now. Let's get into the top 10. At the number 10 spot, we actually have a three-way tie between 3 cities you definitely do not think about when it comes to transit: Cleveland, Charlotte, and Nashville. Cleveland not only has multiple bus lines running to its downtown stadium, but it also has 2 light rail lines that have reopened directly to the stadium. It's easy to get to a Browns game by transit, and it makes the top 10. If you remember from my last tier list video that I uploaded last week, both Charlotte and Nashville got put into my F tier. However, both of their stadiums are located downtown and therefore have easy access to multiple bus lines. On top of this, Nashville is also served by the WeGo Star, a commuter train that runs special game day trains for Titans games. And Charlotte has both of its light rail lines run right by their downtown stadium. Either way, it's pretty easy to get to both of these stadiums by transit, despite the fact that both of these cities score so poorly overall in their urban planning. Coming in at number 9, we have Pittsburgh's Acrisure Stadium. This stadium has connections to the red, blue, and silver light rail lines run by the Port Authority, as well as 2 local bus lines stopping directly at the stadium and multiple other bus lines stopping stopping nearby the stadium. The location downtown makes it easy to attend games, and it's easy to get here by transit. At number 8, we have another city that made my Southeastern tier list video, and this time it's New Orleans. 4 of the 5 streetcar lines that New Orleans has are within half a mile of the stadium, and half a dozen bus routes also run nearby the stadium. The location downtown makes it easy to attend games, and it's incredibly easy to get here by transit. Number 7 is my own personal factory of sadness. Soldier Field, with a transit score of 74, is easy to get to a Bears game by transit. The closest option is taking Metro Electric, which has a stop just outside the stadium, or you can walk the half a mile from the CTA station at Roosevelt, where you can catch the red, green, and orange line trains. There's also a few bus lines that run to the stadium, but it isn't hard to take transit to suffer the pain of Bears football. For the number 6 spot, we have another team that's in the AFC North, which is the only division where all of the teams are in the top 10, and that is Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. It's actually tied for the transit score with the next team on the list, but I'm going to give the other team the edge for a good reason. Cincinnati has a direct streetcar connection to the stadium, but it also has 10 plus bus lines that have a station within a quarter mile of the stadium. Cincinnati may not be the best transit city, or the best football city for that matter, but their stadium is well connected to the transit network of Cincinnati. The South absolutely kills it when it comes to transit accessible NFL stadiums, because at number 5, we have Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. This stadium actually has its own station for the blue and green lines on MARTA, and the red line, gold line, and Atlanta streetcar all have stations within a half a mile of the stadium. The stadium also has multiple bus connections too, and like all the other stadiums in the top 10, it benefits from its downtown location. Falcons fans absolutely do not need to pay for parking to watch the game. In the number 4 spot, we have Detroit's Ford Field. It's very similar to Cincinnati with the streetcar connection and bus connections, but a lot of the bus connections have better frequency, and Detroit also has the advantage of having a people mover nearby the stadium. All of these rankings are very competitive at this point in the list, but the Lions claim a top 4 finish, which isn't common for them, so good job Lions, you finally won something. Look, okay, I'm a massive Vikings hater, but US Bank Stadium definitely deserves this top 3 ranking for transit. With a score of 82, it's easy to see Kirk Cousins play incredibly mid football without a car. The stadium has easy access to the green and blue LRT lines, as well as being within a quarter mile of a dozen bus lines. Great stadium for transit access, and a great entry into the top 3. Our last 2 teams are both birds, and they're both served by light rail transit lines and regional rail. But number 2 is in the AFC North. It's the Ravens. M&T Field is well served by light rail link, MARC, and the MDOT-MTA bus services. It's even easy to get here by transit from multiple different states due to the Northeast Corridor. This is an easy one to get to without a car, and the flock should be proud. Served by the 1 line, the First Hill streetcar, the Sounder, and 16 plus bus lines, Lumen Field in Seattle serves as the most distinguished NFL venue for transit, receiving a score of 100, and it's the only NFL stadium to do so. Seahawks fans, be proud. There's literally no need to ever drive to your home football games, and you just won the Urbanist Lombardi Trophy. So let me know, how did your city rank? Is there anything differently that you would have done in the ranking? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Here's a thank you to everybody who helped me make this video. And here's a very special thank you to all of my patrons, especially Tony Stunts, who's in my Metro tier. If you want to have your name read out in the credits, have a special role on my Discord server, or have early access to my videos, be sure to check out my Patreon, links down below. Also, be sure to check out my social medias, link down below. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, I'll see y'all on the next one.